Hello everybody, my name is Pigsy. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new. And let's just get right into the what if. So we start our story with Deku being birthed by Inko. And Inko doesn't even get the chance to look at her baby before she dies. In an alleyway, where Deku's just stuck there. Luckily for Deku, a person sees the baby, picks them up, ignores the dead body completely, tears the umbilical cord out, and just takes the baby to their house. Eventually we learn this is a snake quirk lady. And Deku's like raised up until 2, where he accidentally touches another baby in daycare, because on Snake Lady works in daycare. And the baby doesn't know it yet, but Deku took his quirk. Deku did that on instinct and didn't even know he took his quirk. And Deku took his quirk, and it turns out that quirk was fire breathing. A little bit of a nod to what Deku could have had if he had a quirk. And so Deku eventually shows signs of having a quirk exactly at the right time, without Deku knowing that he took the kid's quirk. So it's a little bit of an upset because the kid had the exact same trait as every quirk person, but he still didn't have a quirk for some reason. So, yeah. And so Deku just lives his life with his fire-breathing quirk, all the way up to 14, where Deku does it again, where he walks by a guy that he particularly doesn't like because the kid is a creep. It's a person with a sharp blade quirk, but it's like that one guy's fruit in One Piece with the blade fruit, I think, where you can sharpen any edge of your body, elbows, arms, fingers, legs, that kind of quirk. And Deku bumps into him while the guy's harassing someone. On purpose, of course. And the guy tries to pull out a knife thing on Deku, but he can't. And he keeps trying, like he's always done in his life. But when Deku realizes the guy keeps doing the thing at him, he gets annoyed and does the same thing, stabbing the guy right in the chest. Because those blades extend right into the guy's chest, killing him. And Deku retracts it in horror and having blood all over his face and hands. But the girl thanks Deku, and she calls the police, saying that the guy sexually assaulted her and she took action. And so Deku gets away with it, knowing he saved a life. And so Deku takes up vigilante work, taking people's quirks because he realizes that's his power. He takes the quirks of the people he of the creepy people he kills. Sometimes he even has to fight heroes because they're being evil. I would like to mention that Deku lives on his own now because the Snake Lady died of an illness. But luckily she left him in his will because he was the only person she loved as her son. So Deku got all of her will and stuff, and Deku works at the daycare. And then Deku just lives his life really, killing creeps and bad heroes and villains all alike for a couple years, and he becomes a 16-year-old. He doesn't decide to go to UA because he realizes that his methods are a bit bloody. So he decides to become a vigilante instead. And I would say that he actually goes to a different school than Bakura does. So, But, unluckily for Deku, a teacher at that school that Deku went to told him that he should probably go to UA because his quirk's being so powerful. He thinks his Deku's quirk is the fire breathing, which Deku mainly uses in school. So no one knows what his actual quirk is. So Deku, liking the guy enough to where, fine, he'll go. So Deku gets up from the chair he was just in, and actually goes home. Deku tells him, then Izuku tells the teacher that he'll think about it. And Deku then goes home on his laptop, typing out UA, and then does his research and everything, knowing all the people and staff, and knowing the descriptions, Aizawa being strict, Vlad being a bit more laid back, but a lot harder to be nice to, because he's pretty annoying to most of the workers, and he just goes down the list. Then he says up and coming new person, new teacher. So Deku is excited to see what the new teacher will be. But yeah, he's decided he'll try. And so Deku the next day asks the guy if he can get him to be able to change his scholarship. So the teacher, being a nice dude, tells Izuku that he's got it. And so Izuku gets his scholarship changed to UA. And then Deku trains. He trains all of his quirks, every single one of them. But, of course, he trains his fire quirk the most. And even fuses some quirks so Deku can expand his fire quirk. So he can shoot it out of his eyes. Also, he can cover his body in fire. And Deku just decides that's how he'll get into UA. And then he'll reveal that he can, as like a little shocker to the audience. By the audience, he means UA, to shock them into, like, whoa. And eventually, and so Deku, so Izuku, eventually goes over to UA, and is excited to start his new UA. And he gets there, meets a couple people. He meets Ida, Ochako. The conversations really go in canon, but Ida is a less not yelling at Deku for being mumbling. He's just talking to him after the exams. Because Deku approached Ida in this timeline and asked him how his nerves are doing. Vegeta being a little bit more chill now because he's fine with people talking to him. So Deku makes quick friends with Ida and Ochako, because Ochako sees Deku talking to Ida and goes over to see what they're talking about. And then that group just forms, really. And Deku decides that he'll do a little bit of trolling. So Deku turns over to the door, charges up a fire punch, and smashes through the door, melting the door fully off. With everyone being like, "Whoa, kid, dude, you're gonna get yourself disqualified." But Deku just runs in with his fire quirk. And no one disqualifies him or says anything. They actually come on the intercom and tell him to go, go, go. And so Deku gets an early lead by burning up the robots and, getting a big lead. And basically, if you look at the scoreboards right now, Deku and Bakugo are going at the exact same speeds. But of course, if Deku was using all of his quirks, he would demolish Bakugo in this category, in destroying. And eventually, the Zero Pointer shows up, and Deku sees it, and decides, I think this is where he shows his power. So Deku turns off his fire quirk, walks over to the 1.0 point lot, flies up, which shocks everyone, because there seems to be no fire coming from any area, charges an energy wave, and blows a hole straight through the Zero Pointer. And before the Zero Pointer can fall over, the good old all-for-one tentacles come out, but they're green this time, and it catches the Zero Pointer and crushes it into a cube, then setting the cube on fire, melting it through the things, and then Deku retracts them. Again, Deku flies down, and looks directly at his security camera and thumbs up. And then every single pro hero, All Might, everyone's like dead shocked. Especially All Might. Because All Might recognizes those tentacles anywhere and is horrified to what he sees. So All Might immediately tells not everyone that he needs to see that kid immediately, because he needs to know if this kid's connected to All For One at all, because that was exact All For One's quirk, and the exact quirks he used when they were fighting. And so All Might gets a meeting set up after Deku gets into the UA, because clearly he's getting into the UA. So we cut a couple of weeks later to Deku in his studio apartment, then getting a letter. So he looks down at the letter on his sofa while he was binge watching Jujutsu Kaisen, because he liked that show. So he puts down his laptop after he was done doing an essay. The essay was how the babysitting job could work better. He runs babysitting on the side with a family. But anyways, Deku grabs the letter, slowly tears it open in anticipation, and gets a whole tablet. It's custom made too, to just Deku, and it opens up to All Might, straight up All Might, saying that he wants to meet with him and he's gotten to UA. Meet him in the first day of school in the principal's office, which Deku's like, what happened? And so he waits, and then the day comes where he goes over to the principal's office, opens the door to All Might in his small form, telling the kids to just sit down. And so Deku sits down, Izuku sits down, immediately realizing that's All Might. You know how he realizes that? He had a sensory quirk. He has a sensory quirk where he can see the true soul and mind of the person. He has a mind reading quirk, and knows that he just got out of a job beating up a big villain. So Deku sits down, tells him that he knows he's All Might, and so Toshinori gets shocked, goes into his buff form, and actually stands up with his fist clenched, asking him how he knew that, with Deku actually getting shocked, like, oh, like. So All Might chills out, de-shrinks a gun, coughing out blood, but wiping it away with a handkerchief, with Deku shocked on how All Might got this way. Then All Might said that he got this way by a villain. And Deku doesn't know which villain, but he said that sucks. All For One then, Deku then says, so why did you want to see me? All Might says that he has the exact quirk he thought his arch nemesis had. And so Deku asks who that is. And All Might says it was All For One. Which Deku's like, who? And All Might just immediately thinks, okay, this kid has no idea who All For One is. He's safe. So Toshinori explains that All For One is a horrible villain that was born a really, really long time ago. And basically he dumps every single bit of lore All For One has given away to All Might. And so All Might then explains one for all. And the reason All Might's so open to this is because the kid's so strong. I bet that kid would have gotten it already. So Deku then sees All Might's big wound from All For One, and Deku decides to try healing it. Just offer it. All Might's like, chill, dude. Okay. Offer it. All Might's like, best doctors in the world can even heal it. Best healer quirks, all that. Until Deku decides, well, I can just fuse the quirks I have. And then Deku, All Might gets shocked by that statement. And Deku then fuses all the quirks into one spot, where Toshinori got the pain thing, and it retracts, shrinks, bubs out like an old muscle, and it actually starts to fill out All For Toshinori's body, fixing him to look almost like he did in his prime. But of course he still looks old, and he has the darkened eyes. But he's thinner, of course, because it's like a mixture of both forms. And so Deku tells All Might that, well, if this All For One guy has this quirk, then he should probably be able to do the same thing. So All Might keeps that in mind and says to Deku that he thinks he killed him. But All Might does say he does have his doubts, though. I meant to say All Might's still old, so he's not basically in his prime. He just has an old wound healed. It's still Omega scarred, but he's not dying from the wound or losing power when he powers up. So he doesn't have a timeline anymore. So just basically, if All Might never got punched. So pretty strong. Anyways, Deku says that he'll try and find him, which All Might wonders how he's going to do that, but All Might ignores that because he needs to go teach a class. Or talk to Nezu, who just walked in. So Deku stands up, says, "Hello, Nezu," and Nezu says hi to his new student, like, "Hello, student," and then Deku leaves. And then Nezu actually gets a face of shock when he realizes All Might looks a lot younger and a lot slimmer than if he was in his buff form. And then Toshinori then explains that he told Deku everything. And Nezu looks at Toshinori with a dumbfounded face. Then we see Deku just skipping along to his first class of Class 1A. A bit late, but he's there. He's there before they, at least the class is about to start. And Deku then says out loud that they should probably be quiet considering the teacher's about to get here. Is here. With everyone being shocked how Deku knew that. When Deku looks over to the desk, he hears a voice grumbling, and Aizawa gets up and explains himself. Explains that they're going to do something, and that it took them way too long to be quiet. And Deku then just waits. Then Deku goes to sit down, and Aizawa explains what they're going to do. They're going to test their abilities, which I don't want to explain because we all know how this goes. Deku aces every single category. Like, he's absorbed so many quirks already from how many years he's been doing this? 16. Actually, not 16. 14. Takes 11 years, so he doesn't have a lot, but he does have most. By the way, some of the quirks Deku doesn't even remember, so I mean, you know that tentacle thing he had? He basically got it from basically genes. Now I just spoiled it, didn't I? Yeah, All For One's Deku's dad. That's why Inko was dying, because after about to give birth to Deku, All For One felt threatened, so he went to go kill her. And almost killed her, but she got into an alley and gave birth. And the snake lady found Deku before All For One could get there. And why no one figured out who Inko was is because All For One evaporated her with a decay quirk. Yes, it's supposed to be Shigaraki's quirk, revealing that Shigaraki's quirk was implanted into him from All For One. So I'd like to think that All For One's like tentacle things are just like a thing attached to the quirk, because I want Deku to have them. Anyways, we then just see Deku about to leave UA when Uravaka and Ida catch up with Deku and tell him that you want to walk to school home together, and Deku doesn't object, and they just walk to school together. With Deku saying that they are good company, and so yeah. So we see the next. That's really the end, really. Anyways, guys, hope you liked the video. It's really a build up to the USJ stuff. Anyways, enough of that. Like, subscribe, hit the post notification bells. Hope you guys liked the video. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Goodbye. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new. And we're just gonna get right into it, because I love getting right into it. So we continue our story with Deku waking up, making him a bowl of ramen with some eggs and some pork. He likes waking up to a big breakfast. So Deku eats all of it and sees a text from All Might. In between parts, they exchange phone numbers. And it says he'd like to meet them after class to discuss more matters on his quirk and the person that he thinks he's related to. Which Deku has been talking to All Might about who he could be related to, because All Might clearly thinks he's related to someone, so Deku wants to know who. And so after Deku sees that, he goes to school and gets told that they're going to the USJ by Aizawa. He's excited because, like, cool, new field trip. He loves learning. And so he goes and meets up with his friends Ida and Ochako, and sees a blonde-haired kid being really aggressive towards this red-haired kid, Bakugo and Kirishima. Remember, this timeline, Deku doesn't know who Bakugo is. Deku thinks he's annoying, because he probably isn't all that, is he? So after Deku, found him annoying, they all got into the bus, and everyone discussed whose quirk is the strongest. Ochako immediately blurts out Deku. Without anyone else trying to argue, the conversation ends with Bakugo yelling that there's no way he's that strong, that you guys all think he's that strong. I bet I could beat him easily. Everyone goes dead silent looking at Bakugo. Bakugo, annoyed, scoffs and lays back. And Deku giggles, knowing they're right. So after they get to the USJ, they're being explained on how quirks can be dangerous by the black hole lady. And everyone's like, it's cool. Ochako tells Deku that this is her favorite hero, and she's gushing right now. And so, after all that, the villains show up. And the villains are like walking through the portal, and Deku's like shocked, because why wouldn't he? And Aizawa jumps down to go fight them all. Deku stays up there, like Aizawa asked, because he's not bold. He knows the best place he can be right now is next to his friends. And so when Kurogiri shows up, Deku charges up an air cannon. His quirk, like, his hand mutates into like a cannon and he shoots air. Ochako almost vomits because how gross it was. But Deku air cannons Kurogiri, distorting his, fog. So Kurogiri has to shoot them just a couple of Class 1A off the stairs. Not including Deku, of course, because, he's the one that shot him. So Deku's hand mutates back, and Deku immediately goes for Kurogiri's quirk, because that would be extremely useful right now. But Kurogiri dips out before Deku can touch him. Mind you, he doesn't know that Deku has All for One, but he's like, I'm not getting shot with air again. So he dips back to Shigaraki, telling Shigaraki such that he got cooked. And Shigaraki gets mad, and Kurogiri explains who the kid looks like, and Shigaraki tells the Nomu to kill that kid when they see that kid. So Nomu keeps that in mind, and Deku, decides he'll go help his classmates that are scattered. So he flies around, taking out all the villains that have been taking out his friends. Like, it's All for One. You already know what he's doing. He's landing, snatching some quirks, destroying some gravel to telekinetically throw it at people, and mind-breaking someone. If you're wondering what that means, it basically destroys their mental state, and that's what mind break is. Deku will never use this ability again. Anyways, Deku eventually goes to Kurogiri, Shigaraki, and the Nomu, which the Nomu takes into who that is, swings on Deku immediately. Deku gets punched on purpose to grab the Nomu's hand to absorb his quirk. Deku absorbs the quirk, thinking it's the only quirk. He got, like... If you're wondering what the quirk was, it was... let's say it's speed. So it's slow. It's really slow now. So Deku starts outpacing the Nomu, thinking the Nomu is weak now. But the Nomu punches Deku straight in the gut, making Deku cough out blood. Deku is shocked because it's like one of the first time he's ever actually taken damage. So Deku slams into the wall, in pain. But, he has a regeneration quirk, so he regenerates. Oh, by the way, that punch, yeah, it blew a hole through him. He has a hole through him. That punch was so hard, it blew a hole through him. And so Deku regenerates it and takes the Nomu a bit more seriously. So he sends out his tentacles, which shock both Shigaraki and Kurogiri, because that's one of All for One's main techniques. And so Deku stabs the Nomu a buttload, which, again, Kurogiri and Shigaraki are shocked he's using more than one quirk. So they immediately assume, yeah, this guy's All for One, or he has All for One's quirk. Which makes Shigaraki tweak, thinking All for One already gave this kid the quirk. So Shigaraki rushes Deku, no mind to his safety, and is about to get Deku with the Nomu about to punch him. when Deku sends out his wind quirk again. But this one's, it's a different kind of wind quirk, where he channels his energy and then expels it, shooting them back. But Deku lunges at the Nomu first, grabbing the Nomu by the throat, then snatching and sucking as many quirks as he can get out of the guy, which is all of them, which actually reverts the Nomu back to its original state. And then Deku just drops the Nomu. It's a guy now. And Deku uses the super strength to break Shigaraki's arm and break his nose, then toss him towards Kurogiri. Actually hitting Kurogiri and sending him back. And before Deku can kill both Kurogiri and Shigaraki, Snipe shows up and starts shooting Kurogiri and Shigaraki, which stops Deku because the pro heroes are here and he doesn't want to get in trouble. So reluctantly, he chooses not to kill them. So Shigaraki and Kurogiri leave, informing All For One that the kid, well, kind of informing him, kind of not. Shigaraki asks All For One why he gave his quirk away, which All For One is actually shocked by, but mask it with his, intelligence, and asks Shigaraki who this kid was. He said the kid looked almost exactly like him when he was younger, which puzzles All For One and makes him want to look into this kid, because he doesn't know that that's his son. Yeah, big reveal. Obviously, All For One had Deku with Inko, and Inko died after All For One killed her, thinking the kid would usurp him. Kid survived, so whoopsie. So after that, Deku gets a week off, and he uses that week off to work on the quirks he gained from the USJ, which is the shock absorption, the super strength, and super speed. And that's one quirk he got where he could send out daggers from his hands. And yeah, that's it. After the week, Deku decides he'll use some non-lethal quirks, obviously. He obviously gained some quirks after killing a bunch of villains because he's a vigilante. And so after that, we get to the sports festival. And the sports festival starts with, they're running. So Deku gets in line and waits for the bell to ring, when he uses the Nomu's super speed to outpace every single person there and get first place. Because that Nomu was so fast, dog. It was blitzing All Might. That's how fast it was. So obviously, Deku's winning. He went so fast that he actually tumbled a load of guys and flew them in the air. So after, the whole winning the race, everyone's shocked Deku went that fast. So they give him even more points than in the original. They gave him 20 million points. So everyone immediately doesn't want to be on his team. But Deku says that's alright, because he has a trick up his sleeve. And Deku sends out some rocks that he had in his pocket. He had three rocks, and they all grew into human beings. And some of these guys have stick-looking body parts. One has a cannon on his wrist. One is bigger and beefier than the other ones and has a ram head. And one has like a cannon on its face. And it also has power source on its head. And if you couldn't guess, Goat Guy is supposed to be superhuman, Cannon Guy is supposed to have the wind quirk, and the Cannon Guy is supposed to shoot projectiles. So Deku gets on top of the guys, and everyone just says, okay, this works. So everyone immediately targets Deku. Actually, everyone targets Deku. Everyone just ignores everyone else and just targets him. And of course, Deku being so strong, it's legit impossible to get the bands. But some people actually take it from him sometimes, but Deku immediately takes him back with the Wind Guy. Because the Wind Guy can shoot out air and suck in air. So he can suck people in. So he sucks the guy on top of the guys, takes all of their tags, and pulls them off. And then pushes them to the ground, disqualifying the team. And then he takes all their tags. But, of course, he loses all of those and keeps his 20 million. So he starts with 20 million, ends with 20 million. Chu, Baku, and Todoroki did their best, but nothing can really outpace Deku. Because he has All for One, which is overpowered in the My Hero Academia-verse. So, we continue. To the, fights. And All for One and not All for One. But Deku versus Shinzo happens. Deku air cannons him directly out of the ring in an instant. Because Ojiro told him that he didn't feel like himself, and Deku immediately knew what this was. Because he also has a mind control quirk called Mind Break, where he just looks at you with his glare, and your brain just becomes his. And he can just knock you out, make you punch yourself, or, hurt yourself, really. Anyways. Deku air cannon Shinzo out of the ring, shocking everyone, and everyone booing because that was boring. But Deku shrugs and just goes to grab Shinzo's hand, but Shinzo smacks it out of him and walks away. Because, Shinzo wanted to be part of the hero course, and Deku just completely flunked that entire idea from him. And, yeah. And so, yeah, that happens. Deku then, goes to his next match after meeting Endeavor, getting irritated at him, and he stamps a rock guy on him. It's a little one. So the little guy grows and actually lightly breathes air into Endeavor's eye, so he gets annoyed. Looks a little Knievious here. That's not a word. Anyways, Deku goes to his next match, which is Todoroki versus him. And Todoroki, in this timeline anyways, decides there's no way I'm beating Deku with just my ice quirk, so fire quirk. So yes, in this timeline, Shoto uses both his eyes at the beginning, actually catching Deku off guard because he didn't know Todoroki had both ice and fire. And this actually starts to overwhelm Deku a bit because he can't use any of his lethals. Because he has a lot of lethals and not a lot of non-lethals. And so Deku gets overwhelmed and is about to get pushed out of the ring when he decides he's not holding back anymore, slams the ground, destroys the whole ground, and breaks every ice thing, and it has so much impact that it actually pushes away fire. Deku sprints towards Todoroki, charges an air cannon, punches into Shoto, and tries to blow him out the ring. But Todoroki isn't going out like that, so he makes an ice thing, makes him twirl back, and he immediately shoots a massive fire cannon at Deku, actually burning him. Like he starts to get scars, but he heals them. And Todoroki says sorry. Deku says no problem. So Todoroki starts just firing ice and fire at Deku, and Deku counters it with wind quirk and his water quirk. It was from a guy who was primarily made of water. After he killed him, the guy started drooping away, but Deku absorbed the entire guy into his being. And this does show everyone that Deku has all for one, of course. Anyways, the fight continues. Todoroki and Deku are basically trading blows, and Todoroki decides that since Deku can heal, why doesn't he just go all out? And so half the arena gets covered in fire, making everyone sweat, and half the arena becomes cold, being cold. And Deku, seeing this, decides, alright man, I'm gonna hit you with my own thing, and charges every single quirk he's acquired so far into this one attack. It's not as powerful as All for One's, but it's strong. And so he shoots it out, clashing with Todoroki's ice and fire beam, and then it kabooms, blowing Deku back and Todoroki back, slamming Deku to the ground, sliding him across the ground, and we get a closer look at him, with his body being half completely frostbitten straight through, and half of it being scorched straight off, with bones showing. But before anyone can see him, he regenerates all of that, so it just looks like he took minor scratches. And then Deku gets up, brushes over the deck to Todoroki to see if he's alright. And he's kind of alright. Todoroki has a broken arm, a broken leg, and a missing tooth. Just one. So Deku, heals all that, except the tooth, because he can't do that. So Deku takes him out of the wall, and Deku's declared the winner, because Todoroki was out while Deku was perfectly fine. By the way, they were like, yeah, let's just not count ring outs now, because there's like no ring at all. So they take a bit of an intermission, with Deku taking Todoroki to the hospital. I mean, not hospital, nurse room? Whatever. With All Might showing up, asking Deku if he would like to talk now. With Deku saying sure. All Might says that ever since Deku has healed him, he's been able to do much more hero work. And he thanks the heavens that Deku showed up, or he probably would have been just completely stopped hero working by now. And Deku says no problem. So All Might and Deku have a conversation on who All Might suspects his dad is. And All Might says he suspects his dad is All for One, considering they have the exact same quirk. Which Deku wants to know more about this guy, see who he is, really. So All for One All Might explains that the guy was a dictator, and only let people live in peace if he'd let them take their quirk, or give them a quirk. That's really All for One's ideal. Which Deku thinks that most people don't really want their quirks. Most people he's run into don't really want quirks. Most quirkless people, he elaborates. But All Might explains that the reason he knows about all for one is that he has one for all. And Deku's just asking, is that's just an inverse? That's the whole thing. And then All Might explains the lore of One for All, how it came from All for One's brother, and how it passed on all the way to him. And All Might knows he's aging, and he knows all that, and All Might's looking for a successor, which he doesn't tell Deku, but he's also thinking he could be the successor. But Deku doesn't know that. But Deku says that's cool. And tells All Might that a good candidate could probably be Bakugo. And Deku mostly just brings him up because he actually did pretty well against him in the cavalry battle and the race. Because he actually looked behind him for a split second, and Bakugo was right behind him, actually. And in the cavalry battle, he was actually the one that took the band from him. But he didn't fall on the ground, he actually went back to his team. And so, but All Might says that he doesn't really know him, considering they haven't had any conflicts. And so, yeah. And so, Deku and All Might have a bit more conversation until an Intercon comes in. Izuku Midoriya to the battle area. I don't know what it's called. And then Deku says, "They calling me." All Might says, "He'll be watching." And so, Deku walks out there with Bakugo already there, arms crossed in an annoyed fashion, with Deku paying no mind to it, really, telling Bakugo that, "Are you ready?" And Bakugo said, "Born ready." And he gets into a stance, with Deku also getting into his usual stance. But Deku decides to take this a bit more hand to hand. And so Bakugo and Deku rush each other and start swinging and punching each other, with Deku redirecting blast and sometimes taking some blast, but of course he heals them and charges. Sometimes he charges like a rock fist and punches Bakugo away. Actually, the reason he's been able to deflect stuff is because he has rock hands. Let me re-explain that. Deku put rock hands on him when Bakugo rushed him, and he started deflecting Bakugo's attacks. So when Bakugo was throwing attacks, Deku was deflecting and smacking the explosive backwards. And then Bakugo changed up the strategy by making Deku redirect the explosion to him, which got Deku in the face. But he heals it before anyone sees his face burned. And then Deku socked Bakugo in the face, which makes Bakugo kick Deku in the leg, pushing him back. But Deku uses his air quirk to push Bakugo away, but Bakugo clutches himself up. And then Deku breaks off his rock hands and pulls out the blade quirk that we're familiar with now. And so Bakugo rushes him again, with Deku sometimes cutting Bakugo, not deeply, but like lashes. And then Bakugo was able to try to blow a hole, not a hole, but blow Deku off of the arena, which pushes Deku back almost out of the arena, which made Bakugo take this chance and charge a big explosion towards Deku. Almost about to send him out of the ring, but Deku flies up and flies to Bakugo, slamming him into the dirt, palming Bakugo, and picks him up, grabs him by his leg, spins him, and before he can do the full spin, Bakugo twists his hands and blows up Deku's back, destroying his gi slightly in the back region, which makes him tear the whole gi front part of the gi off. It's not a gi, it's like the training outfits. Now Deku's shirtless, and then Deku wants to even the odds and shoots an air blast towards Bakugo, which is a really big one, which shoots off all his clothes. Not all of his clothes, his shirt too. So then they're just punching each other with, and then Deku decides to just quit with the quirks, and so does Bakugo, and they just start fisticuffing. And of course Bakugo is winning the exchange because Deku has not a lot of experience in fighting, but he wants to learn, so he's trying to fight with no quirks sometimes. Because he feels though, like if there's a guy out there with the same quirk as him, what if he takes all of his quirks and he has to fight alone? So if I can cut that out. Then he wants to, since there's a guy out there that has the same quirk as him, he's afraid that guy could take all of his quirks and he'd have to fight fist hand to hand. So he needs to be ready for that. And so Baku and him are still fisticuffing, but Deku decides to put a bit of oomph into his last punch by enhancing with a strength quirk, punching Baku so hard that he makes like a whole, he gets punched so hard that he coughs out spit, and just like a sharp turn slam to the ground. And then he definitely saw that Deku did that, blowing himself towards Deku, spinning around him, grabbing by his arm, and then slamming him onto the ground. And Deku, wants to end this because it's starting to hurt, and then he just shockwaves himself, using his Sky Quirk, of course, into Bakugo, then flying him close to the end of the ring. Bakugo knows Deku can tank some stuff, so he just actually leans into Deku, which Deku's confused why he's doing that, and blows up every bead of sweat on him, hitting Deku so hard in point-blank range, slams him to the ground, destroying all the ground below him, actually making a crater. And Deku decides to take the fall, and he regenerates all of the thing, but he acts like he's out. And Bakugo, thinking he won, inhales and exhales aggressively, and then yells, "I win," in his Bakugo voice. And Bakugo then collapses and goes unconscious. But while the EMPs are about to pick him up, he just gets up immediately, without any trouble, and just heals Bakugo with all the internal broken bones and explosives and burns off. So Bakugo's back to full health, but he's still unconscious. And then the ceremonies are held. Of course, Bakugo is knocked out, so he can't really be in the ceremony. But Deku, grabs the medal from All Might and says he'll give it to him. And then Deku takes a camera that they were using to record him for live television, and he walks over to Bakugo's thing, sets up a camera, and then gives it to Bakugo, and smiles at the camera. And then he, turns off the camera. With his technical quirk. The quirk I'm talking about. And then Deku brings the camera back to the people, and they take it and say thanks because they saw that. So after all that, yeah, that's probably where I'm going to leave things right now. We're at Deku's second place because he wanted to be, and that's really it. Hope you liked the video. Like, subscribe, hit the post notification bells because I need to say it or I won't get popular. Anyways, see y'all later. Hello everybody, my name is Fixie People. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new. And let's get into the video. I might be slow on the upload schedule because I have F's in almost all my classes. So cut me some slack, alright? Anyways, let's get into the video. So, we continue our story with Deku, taking the L from Bakugo, because, he let him get it. And him then just going home and seeing what kind of agency he's got. Which already one stands out, All Might. So he takes it immediately and says this one. So Aizawa takes it and says, okay. And then All Might then says that he doesn't have an agency. He just sent that to Deku for as a note. And Deku's like, well, then where do I go? I was going to send you to a place where my successor is going. You're what? Oh yeah, I didn't explain that yet. All Might then explains that he can pass on one for all. And then Deku says, that sounds useful. And All Might then explains the quirk and how it got passed down to him. And then Deku says, cool. Then All Might then shows Deku his successor. And his successor is Mirio. Of course, because who else is going to be the successor? And so Deku shakes Mirio's hand, and Mirio and him talk. Then Mirio asks Deku if they can fight, because he wants to test his strength against his, considering he has the exact quirk that his main villain is going to have. So Deku decides, sure. So they go into the training arena. Deku powers up. So does Mirio by going to full cowling. By the way, yes, he's had it ever. You remember when Deku got one for all? That's when Mirio got one for all. All Might already picked out a successor. And so the fight begins. Deku starting out with rumbling the earth, trying to make Mirio trip and fall, but Mirio plants himself and launches towards Deku, which makes Deku think that this quirk is probably something of strength, but Mirio then phases through Deku, and Deku gets shocked. Then Mirio basically suplexes him. And more like a leap, grab the neck, and then slam. Then Deku gets up from the slam by shooting his air quirk, his really strong air quirk, towards Mirio, which actually pushes him up. Yes, it phases through him, but the current just sends him up. So Deku uses this to plant his hands on the ground and start rumbling the earth, revealing rock creatures coming out of the earth. Yeah, the rock creatures from the cavalry banner. And they all jump Mirio. But Mirio, being the goat, destroys all of them, dodges some, and just destroys all of them with minimal stamina lost. It's basically like how Madara took out the Shilomi Alliance. And then Deku, like, sneaks up on Mirio after he's collecting himself, and point blank shoots him with a water cannon in the back, sending him flying, and then but Mirio phases through it after getting hit with it, then phases over to Deku going for a punch. But Deku, already knows his quirk, so he waits on the punch Mirio actually intended on throwing it, so Deku dodged it, grabbed his wrist, and then used his, palm to palm strike Mirio right in the nose, pushing him back, which shocks Mirio because people don't usually predict when he's going to throw or not throw a punch. And so Mirio locks in. He was just toying around now and starts decimating Deku with his speed and his unpredictability. But Deku starts to get the hang of it and starts getting hit less. And eventually he gets a counter with his rock hand, where he grips Mirio's hand, pulls him in, and then gut checks him. But he puts a lot into this gut check. He puts all of his quirks into it and punches Mirio. But Mirio, being durable and having one for all, it hurts less. But hurts a whole lot, which knocks Mirio in the back of it. But then Mirio and Deku start clashing again, until Mirio gets the upper hand and knocks Deku down. And before Mirio can get the chance to react, Deku sends out his tendrils, grabbing Mirio and then spinning him and slamming him into the ground, dropping Mirio. And then Mirio raises his hand up and says he yields. And then Deku bows, with Mirio bowing as well, saying that was cool. And so after this, Mirio says he's gonna have to go train with someone named Gran Torino. He's been working with him for a minute now, but he thinks Deku would greatly benefit from his teachings. So Deku decides to go with Gran Torino's agency. So Deku gets there, with Gran Torino being old, and Deku talks to Gran Torino, knowing it's him. And so Gran Torino, goes to swing on Deku, but Deku dodges it, which impresses Gran Torino. But Gran Torino goes for another kick, trying to confuse Deku. Like, he stopped moving for a second, was casually back, and then went right back for a kick, but Deku dodged it again. Like, come on, bro. He was legit outpacing Mirio's full cowling. I think he could outpace a few Gran Torino kicks from not even max power. And so Gran Torino says he's impressed and says he'd love to work with the kid. And so Deku and Gran Torino practice Deku using all of his quirks in unison. Like, not just using one and then spamming it. He's trying to teach Deku how to, do what All For One does, where he uses multiple quirks at the same time. Not his max out punch he does, like Tensroll Rock Fist, where he pulls you in, punches you in the face. But then you could combo that with Rock Humans, where he grabs them, pulls them underneath the ground, and just starts punching them in the face with his rock hands. And then he could hit him with a water pulse point blank to the face. It should be cool. Anyways, that's basically what Deku learns. He learns how to use his quirks in unison better than he already was using. Anyways, Deku, learns and stuff, and Gran Torino and Deku go on a shop to go shop, and they're sitting on a and yeah, Deku goes on a train with Gran Torino, and the bird Nomu shows up, which Deku knows how to deal with Nomu, so he just tackles it and just takes all of its quirks away. He face palms it, and then takes all of its quirks away, revealing it's back to a human. And then so Deku just throws the guy onto the train station with him being knocked out. And Deku got a wing quirk that sprouts out of his back, which hurts like hell. But Deku contains himself and just uses them to fly over to where where the fire is. But of course he's boosted by the wings. It's basically what All For One did in the manga with Hawks' wings. And so Gran Torino follows Deku, because he doesn't want Deku to get in trouble. And so they get on the scene to see Endeavor, Manual, basically the whole group that was there, beating up the Nomus. And so Deku decides that enough's enough, and decides to take all the quirks of the Nomus. And the Nomus drop unconscious because of how maxed out they were. Except for the one without eyeballs, then that one just dies because it just has its brain exposed. Which Deku feels bad, but what is he gonna do? Then Todoroki remembers that Ida was around here, but he doesn't see him anymore, so he goes rushing off, telling Deku to follow him. So Deku follows him, with Gran Torino saying he'll cover Deku. And so, Todoroki and Deku go to find Ida, finding him in an alley with his arm being stabbed deeply. And Stain is just there, pulls his knife out, and then points at Deku, saying his blood is tainted. And yes, I mean that All For One is Deku's dad, obviously. Because you can't have All For One without All For One. So, that's what I mean. And so, then Stain licks the blood off his knife, making Ida stunned. And then he pulls out his bigger blade and says, "Bring it." And so everyone tries to jump Stain, but Stain's outpacing Deku because Stain's just so unpredictable. A lot more than Miria was. But not as fast, though, so he can still kind of react. And when Deku gets his blood, and before Deku gets his blood licked, Stain flicks it off his knife, saying he doesn't need that. Saying he's got this. He's got this. And so Todoroki gets irritated and throws an ice blast. But Stain just punches through it and cuts Shoto and licks the blood off, knocking him out. Dropping him, And then Stain pulls out two more longer blades. Actually, just one more longer blade. And dual wields and says it's going to be a 1v1. Because he wants to take out threats to the hero society. Or the real heroes. And so Deku says he is a real hero. And gets into a stance. And then Stain gets into his broad stance where he has both the blades pointed back out. And so Stain starts by kicking a blade that he had hidden beneath his foot into Deku's chest. But Deku pulls out immediately and heals himself, which Stain says, just like him. And so Deku gets mad because he already knows who Stain's talking about. So he sends out his tendrils, trying to catch Stain, but Stain just breaks all of them because how strong he is. Remember, Deku isn't as strong as All For One. And so Deku and Stain are clashing and stuff. Deku eventually pulls out the bleed quirk he got in the first episode and starts clashing with Stain that way. And eventually Deku gets his finger blades between Stain's actual blades. And then he breaks Stain's blade, puts it into his hand, and stabs Stain right in the gut. But Stain doesn't care, so he stabs Deku. So Deku, Stain. Then Stain stabs Deku in the chest, right in the heart actually, which puts pause to Deku, and he actually slips off unconscious, which him then healing quick enough for Stain to not be able to shut his head off. And so Deku blows up Stain's arm with his maxed out attack. But Stain, grunting in rage, grabs a blade again and runs at Deku, and cutting one of his arm that he cut his arm off. Let me explain that better. He grabbed his long blades and cut the same arm Deku used to blow his arm off. He cut it off. Then Deku stabs him in the chest. Stabs Deku in the chest. Stain stabs Deku in the chest, and again and again and again and again to keep him down. But it's not working because Deku's just adapted to healing there. And so Deku eventually fights through the pain, grabs Stain's blade, takes it out of Stain's hand, takes it out of his body, grabs that other blade, and slices. And then we see Stain standing still, backing up slightly, and then his chest squirts out blood, and he kneels and slumps over. And then Deku goes to feel for a pulse, and Stain's still alive, out of pure rage that this not hero is trying to kill him. So Deku heals him, only to the point where he's not going to bleed out. And then Deku stomps his head in, knocking him all the way out. He was kind of unconscious, but was going to wake up, but now he's just out. So Deku heals himself, Ida, and Todoroki. And so they bring Stain in, but right as they're about to bring Stain in, Deku should have kicked a little bit harder, because Stain gets out, cuts off Deku's hand, and dips, and they do not chase after him because they can't. He was gone like a flash, with Deku not even realizing his hand was gone. So he regenerates his hand like a really gross way, and Ida throws up, but Todoroki just gets a green face. You know the anime green face when their look sickened? Yeah, that face. And so then they just report that Stain was on the loose and they had to fight, taking his right arm off. And then Endeavor says why he was going to take Shoto's head off. Ida explains, and then Endeavor says, I'm going to kill him. And then Endeavor walks away, trying to go find the Stain to kill him. And so Deku returns back to Gran Torino and finishes up his hero course. And I think that's where I'm going to leave things right now. I'm really tired right now, so kind of want to just get it apart out there. Anyways, like, subscribe, hit the post notification bells. Hope you like the fights. That's really what was cool about this. This is just a fighting episode. Anyways, see y'all later. Have a good one. Bye. Hello everybody, my name is Easy People. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new. And no explanation of why it's taken so long for this video to come out. Let's get into the video. So we continue our story after Deku, took off Stain's arm and Stain got escaped. And Deku, then gets a call from All Might from his home or apartment, and hears All Might say that if he wants to know more about his father, or who he assumes is his father, then he should come over to his office, his agency, really. So Deku goes over there, and they have a sit down, and All Might explains who he thinks Deku's father is, and then he says, All for One. That's who Deku's father is, which Deku doesn't really know who that is, considering how old All for One is and how secretive he is. But All Might then explains that All for One is a evil villain that kills whoever's in his way, no matter if they're a villain, hero, bystander, doesn't matter. And he probably killed Deku's mother to keep him from being born, but he probably failed because he's right in front of him. So Deku asked why he knows about him, All Might. So All Might explains One for All to Deku, which is the whole All for One was from All for One's brother who got killed. That gave the other guy, the second One for All user, the quirk. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth, and then to All Might. Then Deku understands what One for All is, and that's really it. And so All Might explains that before Deku healed him, he was looking for a successor. But Deku has postponed that, and All Might decide he's looking for one still, but for now he's good. So Deku is confused how he hasn't picked anyone yet, considering how good all these heroes are at UA. But All Might says that's not really why he picks them. He picks them on how they react to dangerous situations. So far, he hasn't really met that person that runs into battle without a second thought, or to save someone. So he says that's a reasonable, reason to want a better One for All candidate, and then All Might and Deku just talk about how One for All is and All for One are contradictory to each other. So Deku, after the talk with Toshinori, exits All Might's office and walks around it for a sec, meeting up with a guy in a gray suit named Sir Night-Eye. Deku knows this because he's a popular hero in critics wise, like how he saves people, and he knows his power is foresight. So Deku says hello, and Sir Night-Eye puts his hand out to say hello too, as a handshake. So Deku shakes his hand, and Sir Night-Eye talks with Deku on how All Might should be retiring by now, considering how old he is. But Deku says that he should be fine considering he healed him, which Sir Night-Eye gets shocked at, considering this is his first meeting with All Might. He was just about to go talk to All Might because he wanted to talk about Mirio to All Might as a candidate, but Tsunade brushes that aside and just says that he still needs to pick a user already. So he walks past Deku, giving Deku his card to work at his agency at one point. So Deku keeps it and walks home. This went over by a weekend. So after that, we get to Deku getting his hero license. And I think you already know how this goes. Deku gets in there, saves a buttload of people in the first half. Next one, where with the ball things, he just protects himself with his air quirk, basically just walking through everyone, so no one can touch him. And he flies around when anyone tries to that drill guy tried to drill the ground. But Deku just clears the whole area, gets his hero license easy. So after that, Deku then gets a call from Tsunade. All Might gave Tsunade his phone number. So Deku picks up, and Tsunade explains that he'd like him to work at his agency to see why All Might has seemed such a piqued his interest in him so much. And so Deku says, sure. And so Deku goes to work at Tsunade's agency, and he meets up with Mirio in the front office, and Deku asks who he is, and Mirio explains him and says he's one of the upperclassmen of UA and is going to graduate next year. And so Deku says that's cool and asks if he works here. And then Mirio explains that he's been working at Tsunade's ever since he joined UA. And so Deku and Mirio talk to each other and get to know each other. And then Tsunade shows up and sits into his office and talks to them on how he could get accepted in here. So he pulls out his, rook thing, stamps, I can't remember, and tells Deku to take it from him. And Deku, thinking this will be easy, immediately goes for his tentacle thing. But Tsunade dodges it, pushing back from his chair, telling Deku that he just read his future and knows everything he's going to do before he even does it. But Deku says, can you predict this? And Tsunade puts his eyes up forward, and then Deku air blasts the whole area, knocking Tsunade back, dribbling him back, which gives Deku the time to speed blitz Tsunade and take his rook. The reason Tsunade, you already know why Tsunade couldn't react to that. It was a whole AoE into his room, so he couldn't really dodge anything. Anyways, Tsunade gets up and says that he made a mess of his office, but he says you're in. So Deku is into the UA. Oh, I haven't really explained what Deku's hero outfit is. It's just a tuxedo. He also has white hair, and I'll say he still has green eyes. That's basically what he looks like. So after Deku does all that, he then goes on a patrol with Mirio as his first thing. And they're walking around, Mirio's explaining how his patrol works, and Deku's saying that seems like a very entertaining thing to do. Then a little girl bumps into Deku, and Deku looks down to see it's Eri. And Eri's clinging onto Deku, and Deku's wondering where her parents are when Overhaul shows up. And Overhaul stands there with this menacing ass aura for Mirio, not for Deku. And so Deku sees this guy, clearly evil, like, look at him, dog. Bird mask, looks like he's about to kill someone, has the aura he's gonna kill someone, and looks like he's trying to activate his quirk by gripping onto his gloves. So Deku immediately, before Eri can try to, make them leave, Deku speed blitzes Overhaul, fisting him straight through the stomach, no pause, pulls his hand out, puts his hand forward, and charges it in like a super omega blast. It's like a big cannon. He's basically learned ki, basically. Kidding. You know how Goku tried to shoot King, the Supreme guy? That's basically how it looks to Overhaul. Then Overhaul gets incinerated by a giant air wave, which pushes him all the way, all his skin off to bone. And Overhaul Overhaul's bones crumble to dust, and Deku crushes his skull. Not grabbing his quirk, because he does not want this guy's quirk in the slightest. So then Deku closes his palm, looks over to Mirio, and Mirio says, that was Overhaul. He was supposed to be captured, but this works. So Mirio lets the whole Deku killing Overhaul slide, considering he sees Eri and sees that Eri is abused. Yeah, Mirio is kind of iffy on killing people. Not in the actual show. Actually, I don't know that. He could be super iffy on not killing, on being able to kill someone. Doesn't matter. Overhaul's dead and Mirio doesn't care. So Eri gets brought to Sir Nida's office, and they do not say that Deku killed Overhaul. They said they took Overhaul. I mean, they took Eri from Overhaul. And so when the news of Overhaul being killed, they kind of don't realize that Overhaul got killed by Deku. They just think he got killed by one of the Yakuza members that worked under him. Well, the whole Yakuza business crumbles in on itself. Deku and Mirio teach Eri how to draw a smiley face. Yeah. So after the Overhaul arc, in quotation marks, considering Deku just killed him, yeah, that's gonna actually have some pretty big complications in the future, isn't it? Anyways, Deku fights then Deku chills out back at his house after saving Eri and killing Overhaul. And of course he does his vigilante thing, taking more quirks from villains and heroes that are pretending to be heroes but are actually villains. I mean heroes that aren't actually good people, okay? Anyways, Deku collects even more quirks, and most of them are useless, but he does get a cool quirk where he can sprout bat wings, which is cool. Anyways, after Deku does all that, after killing all those heroes and villains, kills. Yeah, okay, kind of just yapping. It's just a yap. Yeah, we'll just skip to the whole Endeavor Agency arc, which, you know, Deku and Todoroki and Bakugo go in, and that's really it. Whoa, wait a minute. So eventually, after Deku does all that, he goes back to school, and Aizawa says they're gonna go on a forest arc. And before that, they need to take their full hero exams. They got their license, but they haven't fully become heroes yet. So the whole raffle ticket to whoever's fighting, and eventually it turns out to all be All Might versus Deku and Bakugo. And this time, All Might's weights are even heavier, considering he's a lot stronger. But still, All Might's able to move his hands with pretty big ease, because he's really strong again. Anyways, the battle begins with All Might, mocking Bakugo mostly for his cockiness and telling Deku that just because he has that many quirks doesn't mean anything compared to his overwhelming strength. So Deku is about to do a quick remark like, and then he gets punched in the gut and sent flying. And All Might basically mocked out that punch because he knows Deku can survive that. So Deku has his whole rib broken, with cage broken, and slams into a building, which Bakugo gets shocked at, but, he's not gonna just take that. Just flies over to All Might and just nukes himself, really. But All Might takes it and punches Bakugo into a bus, backflipping him, basically him doing a whole twirl. But Deku's flying back, so All Might defocuses Bakugo. His mistake, because Bakugo gets up faster than All Might expected, and pulls his grenade, with Deku about to confirm it for All Might. And All Might doesn't see it, so he just goes for a punch for Deku. But Deku sprouts wings and just wraps around All Might's arm, tears them off. This barely hurts Deku, by the way. It just yoinks All Might's arm up, which makes it punch upwards, which makes a giant air gash. But, it's not important. So Deku charges all of his quirks into one punch again and socks All Might, punching him really hard to where he takes a knee. And then Bakugo pulls the pin, which hits All Might point blank. Also Deku, but not as relevant. This hurts All Might a lot, but not to the point where it's basically he's out. But Deku is then burnt to like a crisp kind of, but he just regenerates it. He still has his piece fine though, so Bakugo and Deku then try to jump All Might, but All Might just clocks both of them in the chest, and then he throws All Might into the air, grabs Deku by the leg, and basically uses Deku as a cricket bat to hit Bakugo and Deku away from him. So they smash into the ground, but they really know they could probably beat All Might. So Bakugo and Deku get up, a bit beat up, but not too much. Bakugo basically almost out, but Deku perfectly fine because of his whole regeneration factor. So Bakugo says he's gonna do a Hail Mary, and Deku's gonna have to confirm it for him. So Deku decides he will do that. So he flies to All Might with his back quirk regenerated. So he flies over and starts boxing All Might, and it's pretty evenly clashed, especially when Deku spreads out a strength quirk he just got, and a squirt dirt. He basically combines a quirk that's kind of like Tetsu's, where his body gets fully transformed, but instead of metal, it's, let's say, copper, just to make it be different. And Deku then increases his strength, so he starts clashing with All Might, which All Might's still outpacing and outpowering Deku, but Bakugo is charging up his Hail Mary, where he charges all of his sweat into every single pore and is holding his grenade launch thing. So then he puts it back and then shoots himself really far with all the sweat still built up. Then he basically carves himself into a ball, within Deku, sending out a really gross tentacle quirk that burst out of his stomach. There'd probably be a quirk like that, and withholds All Might, and then increases his bat wings to even to hold down All Might's arms and grip them together. And before Baku can hit it, All Might tears out of the thing and punches Deku into it. But this doesn't matter because Deku actually leans into it and charges his air quirk again, making himself like a torpedo launcher. Basically, he twirls Bakugo into like a sphere and then shoots him out like a cannonball, which hits All Might point blank, actually shooting him so far that he shoots himself all the way outside the zone. Like, it sends him gone. He actually gets sent so far, he actually lands in an actually public street. Which All Might then diffuses the situation, saying he's teaching. So then he puts 2 feet up and jumps over there. But Bakugo is already knocked out, and Deku is just dragging him over to the exit. Because he can hear All Might's perfectly fine from that explosion. So they get out of there. Then Deku collapses. Not out, just tired. But they passed. Anyways, let's continue. So after Deku sees Bakugo wake up, Bakugo says, "Did they win?" And then Deku says, "Yeah." And so, since Baku and Deku never knew each other, they're actually getting closely bonded because there's no really baggage there. And so, him and Deku talk and stuff about how they won, until Aizawa shows up saying they're gonna go. They gotta go now. Which Bakugo, knowing that he's basically fine, gets up, gets changed, and of course Aizawa and Deku leave the room for him, and then they head out to the bus. So everyone gets on the bus with Bakugo sitting next to Kishirima because, you know, they're still tighter than what Deku and Bakugo have right now. So Deku just sits alone, and that's what they do. Eventually they get to the whole talking to that lady thing, which Deku's uncomfortable over how, you know, close she is, because Deku likes his personal space. So after Deku, you know, gets uncomfortable, she then collapses to the ground and sends everyone flying down. But Deku hovers himself over, grabbing Bakugo and Kirishima. They were the closest together, and set them down nicely. Bakugo gets annoyed because he doesn't want Deku babying him. So Bakugo gets annoyed at Deku and says that he doesn't want Deku babying him, even though Deku wasn't trying to do that. He was just saving him from a fall. But anyways, they meet up with the rock creatures, and Deku just flies up and charges his wind quirk, and even powers it up slightly, so it does a slashing motion. So it's basically like a slashing move now. So it slashes all the rock creatures, and Deku then just makes a dome. And then Class 1A is shocked at how strong Deku's gotten since the sports vessel. But Deku just brushes off, saying that it's nothing compared to All Might. But they do say that's kind of hyperballing yourself, isn't it? Anyways, they walk all the way to the thing, get there before the bus actually, and the cat ladies are shocked that they even did that. Until they look behind the Class 1A and sees there's a massive hole, like a circle of where trees used to be. And then they just say, okay. So they all wait until the bus arrives, Aizawa commending them on how they got there before them. And Class 1A just lets Aizawa think that, with Deku not caring. So afterwards, Deku meets Koda, and Koda tries to hit Deku in the nuts, but Deku uses his air thing to flip Koda on his butt. Like, he makes him do a backflip and then he lands on his butt. And then Deku tells him that physical violence isn't a good way to expel your anger. But Koda disagrees and says, "Ever heard of a rage room?" And then he walks away. And then Deku's like, "No, I haven't," in an inquisitive tone. Then later that day, he searches up what a rage room is, and then immediately realizes, yeah, he's right. They looked so chillax after that. So Deku turns in and goes to the spa. So he sees Koda up there and thinks he's going to talk to him later. But then he sees him fall back and he flies up to grab Koda. Luckily for Deku, he's able to control steam as well, so he uses the steam to cover where his groin is. So he lands and just takes Koda to one of the cats. Then they explain Koda's past or his parents, and how they got killed by a mysterious villain with a quirk that made his muscles on the outside. And he brutally slaughtered them, but Koda really only saw that his parents were neglecting him, and then when they died, he didn't really care that much. So Deku feels bad and sad, and says he'll try to talk to Koda on saying that heroes are different. But she says, they've been trying for years, and it's really not working. But they say Deku's willing to try. Will to try. You're fine. Go try. So after all that, Deku turns in for the night and sleeps. Next day, they do some training, and they learn. Aizawa just says to Deku that he really doesn't need to train into anything, just work on the quirks he has. So Deku does that. Then later, after they make the curry, Deku sees Koda walking off without any food, so he grabs a bowl and goes to find Koda. Seeing a big cliff, saw Koda walking towards it, he flies all the way up to the cliff, landing, shocking Koda, saying how to get here, and saying to Koda, he can fly. So Koda says leave him alone, but Deku says he'd like to talk, and so Koda just lets him talk. So Deku puts the curry down, and Koda ignores it, so Deku sits, and him and Koda talk. And Koda explains that he lost his parents and he really doesn't like talking to heroes. But Deku then says that he also lost his parents at a very young age, and he still wants to be a hero because he felt as though his parents kept him from a bad thing, and he was adopted by another lady, and that kept him from being alone. And then Deku says that so did the cat ladies, and said that Koda has a family in them, and guess what they are? And then Koda says, heroes. And so Deku and Koda talk, and Koda starts to see Deku's point of view, until Muscular shows up, punches Deku in the face, and sends him flying back, smashing him into the wall. With him about to go slam Koda as well, Deku then flies up and grabs Muscular by his, lats, and tosses him back. Then Muscular takes off his coat and mask and says to Deku that he was paid to kill him, crushing his mask after saying that. And then he powers up into his muscular form, really, with his muscles look on the outside. And so Deku doesn't care what he's here for. He's gonna kill him, You're trying to hurt a kid. With Kota hearing that, thinking, heroes don't usually kill. You see the exception. So Deku fights Muscular, with Deku really just outpacing him, using his air quirk to just bounce Muscular's attacks away. But Muscular keeps attacking, but without any success, and then Deku does a counterattack and then shoots off his air slashes, which cuts off all of Muscular's muscles. Even then, Deku puts it a step forward, making his arm a blade again, then cutting Muscular's arms clean off, making him scream, and then he covers it with muscles, and then makes it like then he makes it into like basically a bludgeoning club, slamming the ground in a rage. It's bigger than his usual muscle arm, and he fights Deku. But really the same thing happens until he gets a big punch, which basically knocks the whole wind out of Deku and some blood, because that was a meaty punch. So after that punch, Deku flies into the air, and Muscular is gonna go punch Kyoto again. But Deku opens his eyes to show he has like a crimson red color. Then he blitzes down, shoves his hand into Muscular's chest, like into the muscular bit. Then he starts vibrating the whole area, and that makes Muscular's muscles blow off again. All the muscles, but Deku doesn't end there. Putting his chest, then he just flies forward slightly and phases through all Muscular's whole body, and then grabs his heart and phases it out of its body. Then Deku shows Muscular, and Muscular reaches out, but Deku crushes it before Muscular can reach it, which basically kills him. So Muscular falls over dead. With Kota shocked that Deku did that, but he's thankful. So Deku walks over to Kota. Kota says, "Looks, what are we gonna do?" And so Deku just says, "Get on him. Get on his back." So Kota gets on Deku's back, and Deku flies over to the cat ladies, puts him down, and he goes to help people. A lot faster than he did in the original, so a lot of stuff doesn't happen. So Deku flies over flies around, eventually meeting up with Ochako and Tsuyu, who explained they just fought a crazy blonde lady that was trying to kill them and take their blood. So then Deku just says, "Where'd she go last?" And they just said they don't know. She ran over there, but they don't know the rest. So Deku says, "So just keep going." So he flies around, eventually running into Moonfish, which Deku basically just knocks his teeth out, and that just drops him immediately, knocking him out. Then Deku runs around even more, finding the Nobu with the whole chainsaw limb things, and just takes all of its quirks, and it returns him back to a skinny, frail dude that looks like he's on meth. And he drops him, and then flies around even more, meeting up with Todoroki, which Totoro explains that guy, and he points to the Compress who was flying away, took Bakugo and made him into like a marble. So Deku says, "Oh really?" Flying really fast towards Compressed, putting his fist up over Compress, but Compress doesn't know, and Deku basically concaves Compress head in and smashes him into the ground. But he turns into mush. Yes, the twice mush. And Compress then tells Deku that they came more prepared this time, considering they know he exists. And so Compress then shows up all around Deku, and then Deku has to guess which one's which. But Deku doesn't want to guess, so he shoots out his air blast, which Compress wasn't expecting. So they grab onto one particular Compress, which Deku then locks on to know who it was, and toss him away. And that Compress shoots himself forward even more. And so Twice then shows up and shoots out a muscular clone, 2 muscular clones. But, Deku just flies through them, like making giant holes in them, making them turn to goop. And Twice puts his hands up into like a shock motion, like, how'd he do that? But before he can grab Compress, a giant flame wall shows up. It's blue, and so Deku knows it's not Todoroki. So he looks over to see it's Dabi. He doesn't know it's Dabi, but it's Dabi. They basically came here to jump Deku, considering they know he's super strong. So Twice and Dabi start jumping him, and Dabi makes, just firewalls and fire spears to throw at Deku. Deku just counters that with his air quirk. And Twice does the same, just with Dabi clones. So Deku then just speed blitzes all of the Dabi clones, and Twice gut checking him, knocking him onto his knees, and him basically groaning in pain, laying down in pain. Then he goes to fight Dabi, but Dabi's a lot stronger than Twice, so it's a lot harder to take him down. But eventually he grabs Dabi and socks him in the jaw, almost ripping off his jaw, but it sticks, and then it flips Dabi in the air. Deku flies up, and then charges his air wave and slams Dabi down to the ground, knocking him out as well. Then he goes to find Compress, but Compress is already flying through a portal. So Deku just tries to blitz over to it, but Compress just gets into the portal way quicker than he did in the original. So then Compress closes it. Kurogiri closes it with Deku slamming into the ground. And then he yells in rage because, he freaking failed. And then we see Dabi, Twice, Toga, and the Crackout guy fall into the Kurogiri portals. Luckily for them, Momo, in this timeline, instead of having the guy who fuses stuff together onto the Nomu, she just put it into Dabi's pocket when he was trying to run away. So she threw it in there with the guy fusing it instead of to a person's body into the guy's pocket, making a pocket really. And the device is a lot smaller, so Dabi won't realize it. So Deku then asks Aizawa what they gotta do, but Aizawa says he doesn't really know, considering they don't know where they are. Until Yaoyorozu shows up saying she does. Then she shows the device, and they know where they are. So Aizawa says that Deku, they can handle this, and Deku says, yeah, okay. But what he actually meant to say is, I don't care, I'm gonna go help save him. So basically Deku photographically memorized the location, and after everyone settled down, he went to the hospital. Everyone went to the hospital. Deku just sat outside the hospital, got up. Then after everyone wasn't looking, he got up, flew directly to where Bakugo is. Yeah, no team for Deku this time. But Deku's gonna be smart about this. That Dabi and Twice team up was kind of strong and took Deku a minute to take care of. But if he takes it stealthy and just grabs Bakugo, this could work. And he looks down, and guess who he sees? He sees Stain just chilling next to a bar with a coat on. So Deku shows up, asks Stain what he's doing. He just says nothing. So instead of Deku just immediately attacking Stain, he asked Stain, could he help him? And Stain says, with what? By the way, Stain thinks Deku is a hero now, because, you know, he did everything he could to protect his friends, which is very heroic-like. So, Stain says, who's he helping? Who's he helping against? And then Deku says the League of Villains, and Stain says he's in. And so Deku asks Stain what he could do. And Stain remembers where the website is, but Deku already says he already knows. So Stain asks what does he need? He needs his help to take down to stun the enemy. So Stain says, sure. So Deku and him fly over there, with Deku picking up Stain by his coat, and then them flying over there. So Stain lands, and so does Deku. And then they stealthily go into the vents of the bar. Then they see the villains talking to Bakugo, trying to convince him to the side. But Deku already knows, yeah, that's not happening. But Stain gets a little annoyed considering, you know, how dare they try to convince a hero to become a villain. So Stain grabs his conveniently small knife and starts unscrewing the bolts to the thing, quietly and slowly. So eventually, then Deku levitates it to move it without it making any noise. And so Deku says, "What's the plan?" And then Stain says that he's gonna ask Deku to cut them with this knife with his telekinesis, but really quickly. Then he's gonna jump down to where the knife is, which is gonna be right below this vent, and he's gonna lick it, which will stun, hopefully, all of them. So Deku says he's got this. So he telekinetically holds onto the knife, and then it zooms around the whole area, cutting out everyone. It was so fast that no one even noticed they got cut. And so Stain jumps down, grabs the knife, everyone looks over to the loud noise that just happened, and they see Stain licking the knife, and immediately know what that means. Because most of them became villains because of Stain. They know who Stain is. So Stain licks the knife and stuns all of them, except Korigiri. But Deku flies down, smashing into Korigiri, and that knocks him dead out. And then Deku just flies around the room, basically grabbing all the villains and smashing them into each other, dropping Dabi and Twice, because those were the main threats, and also takes out Shigaraki. But before he can, release Bakugo, and Stain realizes what's about to happen, so he jumps onto Bakugo, and the whole area explodes, which reveals All For One. Which Deku doesn't care. He'll fight All For One. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if this guy might be his father. But luckily for Deku, All Might shows up, is already there, because they were about to save All Might, Bakugo. And then Deku then tries to look for where Bakugo is, and sees him under Stain. And we see Stain, basically his whole back is burnt, and his ears are kind of scorched. But he just pushes off to reveal Bakugo is fine, and is just stuck in his things. So Deku flies over there, destroys the chain stuff, and says to Bakugo to just get out of there. So Bakugo just says, fine, grabs Stain, and blows off, landing onto a nearby building with Stain in pain, and basically not being able to move. So Deku and All Might jump All For One. But All For One is just way too strong for Deku, so Deku starts to get owned by All For One. But Deku's still able to hold his own. And eventually, All For One tries to get a grasp of Deku to have whatever quirks he got. Yeah, he already knows this is his son, because he already saw that he was using one for All For One. So he tried to steal all the Deku's already had, because he just doesn't care. He wants whatever Deku has. But All Might stops that by punching off All For One's arm, and then punching his stomach in, and then punching it off. Which All For One then and just realizes All Might looks healthy. And then he extends his non-existent eyes into a face of shock, realizing All Might's in his prime. And so he tenses up in fear because he remembers the last time that happened when All Might was in his prime. So he regenerates his arm, immediately busting out his all those quirk things, not even saying their names, and shoots All Might again and again and again. But All Might's catching all these, and then it's basically just All Might versus what happened to. Actually, no. So All Might and All For One are just trading blows, while Deku saves All Might from any damage by taking all of it, considering he has a regeneration quirk and All Might doesn't. So basically, Deku's All Might shield right now. He knows he can't really do anything to All For One. So All Might and Deku basically just team up on All For One. Eventually, All For One gets worn down, and All Might decides he's gonna send everything into this punch. So he powers up into his old skinny form, making his arm, the big arm, punching All For One, with Deku confirming it with his, his wings, stomach tendrils, and the tendrils All For One has, which confirms the punch completely, knocking All For One out and Deku, which Deku flies away, but All Might catches him before he flies fully away. So All For One is out, and before All For One can do anything, Deku shoots awake because he had a failsafe just in case All For One dropped him. So he jumps over to All For One with All Might saying no, and Deku grabs onto All For One and tries to suck every single quirk All For One has, which covers like a huge blast radius, that shoots All Might away and starts cratering the ground, slowly. And eventually that makes Deku's eyes keel over, with All For One's non-existent eyes, keeling over as well. And their mouths start opening in a scream motion. But we see that Deku's soul goes out of his mouth and into All For One's, sending Deku into All For One's mindscape. And Deku meets all the people that All For One has taken quirks from, and they say they'll help Deku in exchange for him being able to kill him. So All For One is trying to fight Deku, and Deku just jumps All For One with the quirk users he's stolen from, which of course this basically makes All For One cooked, because All For One is just a regular guy, while these quirks are basically his whole personality. So they basically tear apart All For One, while Deku finishes him off with an air cannon, shooting him into shreds, eviscerating him from the thing, which makes All For One's body start to tear, and Deku then is what does he do? While the quirk things, whatever they are, start punching Deku upwards. It hurts a lot, but it's working, and they punch him out of All For One's body. Some of them, not all of them, go with Deku, and that transfers into Deku. Deku then goes back into his body, and then the crater basically implodes onto itself, with All For One being the bomb. This then shoots Deku so far back that he actually gets sent all the way to where the Dubega beach is, but he gets shot into the water. He's also a half bone, half actual guy, where his arm used to be. Basically, the explosion blew half his body off, and that shot Deku into the river. Nobody seeing that except All Might, who saw Deku peel off like get shot really far back through a couple buildings and all this stuff. So they get shocked what just happened, and then everyone cheers because for one is dead. With Bakugo and Stain finally being up, shocked at what just happened. Bakugo thinking Deku's dead, and so does Stain. But they also remember that Shigaraki and the rest of the League of Villains are unaccounted for. So Stain immediately thinks that Shigaraki is just going to immediately take off where All For One was, so he just peels off before Bakugo can even see him. So Bakugo looks around, realizing Stain's gone. Anyways, we see Deku collapse onto the water, getting stuck on like a reef. Then we see him slowly regenerating. And then basically the whole... everything that happens up until the Shigaraki point. But without Deku, because, you know, Deku's regenerating in water. Eventually, Deku regenerates fully, but he's still out. Until he senses more of All For One. So he shoots out of the water and just peels to where that is. Then he flies over to Shigaraki standing over Endeavor. He doesn't care. He flies over to Shigaraki, punching him in the gut. And then Shigaraki, shocked, he thought he was dead. And we see Deku having... honestly, not gonna sugarcoat, he's butt booty naked. Butt booty naked. So... then Shigaraki just starts getting wailed on. Then he tries to grab Deku's face, trying to take his quirks, but it completely backfires, just blowing off Shigaraki's arm. Making Shigaraki realized that Deku, when he was unconscious, made a whole blocker for All For One. So anyone with the same type of quirk as him can't access him. So he starts wailing on Shigaraki and destroying him. Eventually this culminates into Deku just punching him, kicking him up, flying up, kicking him back down, shooting an energy wave that sends him up, which makes Deku able to grab Shigaraki by the throat and steal all of his quirks with no hesitation. Like, there's no... there's nothing overdramatic. It's just Deku pulling out every quirk Shigaraki has, which actually sucks the white hair off of Shigaraki, making his hair black again, actually. Which then makes him, like, demorph back to his original, like, skinny stuff. Yeah. I think All For One gave him just muscle, which, if he lost it, it would just remove all his muscle. So Shigaraki then, after being all of his quirks taken away, basically dies. Yeah, that would just kill someone. So, after Shigaraki's dead, Deku just drops his body, making him sail to the ground, smashing into it, which basically kills him, mangling his body into the ground. Which, after Deku does all that, he realizes his condition, doesn't care really, lands onto the ground, grabs a cloth from some rubble and ties it around his waist. Then Deku raises his fist up, like how All Might did him. And after that, Deku just peels out of there. And then eventually the League of Villains try to do a counterattack, but Deku shows up again, this time with his hero outfit on, and just takes them out in, like, no deaths. He basically just kills all of them. Dabi gets eviscerated with an air cannon. Choga gets her head, sadly, she gets her head punched off. Spinner gets her gut check, which basically goes through him. and then Deku steals his quirk, reverting him into an actual human, which makes him just die on spot with the giant hole through him. Then he drops Spinner, and he actually just... And he gets like a lizard form for a second, but he just flies down and gives it back to Spinner. Yeah, he can give dead people quirks. Who cares? So after Deku did all that, destroying the League of Villains and every single Liberation Army, I can't remember. And then he destroys all the members of the Liberation Army, and that's really it. Then Deku just goes through UA and becomes the #1 hero, and then just lives for basically forever. Because, yes, he grabbed All For One's I Can Live Forever quirk. So Deku then just becomes the #1 hero forever, and world peace, because Deku is so strong that who's gonna stop him, really? So, that's really Deku's whole journey. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Like, subscribe, hit the post notification bells. I will see all y'all later. Goodbye.